What are we doing here? Yes, Israel, but what are we doing at the Leadership Summit? Why are we here? Anyone just shout out why you chose to come here? It's basically the same. The reasons we're here are exactly the same, that we're looking for change. The more that I talk to everyone on Masa and the more that I think about myself, we're all here in some sort of crossroads in our lives. We're right out of school, we're looking for our next job, we're looking to learn something, we're looking for experience, we're looking to move to Israel. The Israelis may be looking to learn something new to take with them back to work. We're all in the middle of this change. And the thing about change is that we're looking for this new direction, and it happens more often than not when we travel. So we're all here traveling. The Americans, the South Americans, the Russians, everyone here who doesn't live here is traveling here, and the Israelis know it from the year after the army that you spend traveling. You go and you travel and you learn about yourself, you learn about the world, and you go to find something new, to find new people and to change. And the thing about travel is that it's easy to change for two reasons. It's easy because it's very low risk. There are people that have gone to Thailand years and years and years, and so I can just follow in their footsteps, but my experience in Thailand changed me. Or when you went to Australia, it was amazing because of this. But it's a pretty low risk thing to travel the world and to come back changed. And the second thing is that it expands your comfort zones. So the things about comfort zones is that when you're in your comfort zone, you're not learning. And so when you're able to travel and meet new people and experience new things, you're able to change and get a new perspective, but it only really happens on the edge of your comfort zone. So I want to tell you a story about travel that changed my life. I went to Peru 2 years ago, and it absolutely changed my life. So the way that I travel, if you know me from this experience from before, if you want to get to know me more, the way that I like to do things is that I'm a very organized, list-focused, to the extreme, to the point where people make fun of me. So Peru is no different. So when I plan to the extreme. So these are 2 options for the schedule. These were all the reservations that I made while I was there. This is everything to do in Peru. So you can see that's Lima, this is Cusco, this is Aguas Calientes, and these are restaurants and adventure and nightlife and culture and shopping. And I created all these Google Docs. I created these Google Maps of the things to do. This is just one area of Cusco, and it's restaurants and things to do, okay? And I'm so excited. It's months and months of planning and rehearsing and sorry, not rehearsing, but months and months of I'm in my head talking about this presentation. It's months and months of planning and organizing and list making and mentally preparing. And I finally show up in Peru. And the worst thing that could possibly happen happens on the first day. And for those of you who have traveled, know that the worst thing that can happen when you're traveling...
Steal your backpack. Lose your passport.
Lose your luggage. Yeah.
Passport? No Wi-Fi. So I have all these Google Docs and I have all these Google Maps, and suddenly I'm screwed. I have nothing with all of my planning and all of my lists, and I basically am on my own in Peru. And I remember I'm supposed to go to Machu Picchu, I'm supposed to go to these hotels to check in, and I'm supposed to go to La Plaza de Armas. It's this main square in Cusco, and that's really all I remember. And so there's 2 things that I can do. I show up to Peru and I could go to the internet cafe and I can look up new stuff, I can get new lists, I can write stuff by hand and do it the way that I planned. Or I can kind of wing it and just internalize the list and move on as I want. And what ended up happening is I obviously did the latter, and I ended up doing amazing things. So I'm walking the streets of Lima, and I had the best cocktail of my life. And I found out later, I went home and I researched this restaurant in Haiti, and it's supposed to be the best pisco sour in all of South America. And it just happened to be this place that I walked by, and it looked cool, and it looked like there were locals hanging out, and then I stopped for a drink. The same thing happened. I went out to dinner in Cusco a couple nights later, and I'm walking by, and this restaurant looks incredible. Every plate looks better than the last one, and there's no restaurant name on the door, there's no website, so I really couldn't have researched this beforehand. It was just kind of along my way as I'm exploring the city. I happened to be hungry at the right time, popped into this place. I ended up going to La Plaza de Armas, and when I went, it happened to be the day of this priest's death, or some big death of someone in the community. I should be more respectful and know that. But there was this huge parade, and I participated in this cultural event, and I'm walking with the people, and I'm taking pictures, and I'm meeting people, and it was this amazing experience that I couldn't have planned for. Same thing when I'm hiking the trails of Machu Picchu. I ended up hiking along with this girl, Becky, who I spent the next 3 days with, and she was just a travel buddy, but she was by herself, and we spent like 3 days just exploring the city and talking about what it means to travel alone, what it means to be in the middle of a change in your life. And it really opened my eyes, because had I had these things in mind of what I wanted to do, I wouldn't have ever opened up to these new experiences. So Peru changed my life not only because of the experiences that I had, but the way that I planned it and the way that I plan my future travels and life has changed because of that. So I have this theory. It's a philosophy, I guess, in terms of the way I travel. And it's about being spontaneous. It's about planning in these sort of accidental greatness things that happen when we travel that end up changing how we see the world and ourselves. And I call it the swerve. And the swerve is this idea, if you look it up in the dictionary, literally means to abruptly change directions. And it means you're on your way somewhere and you swerve the other way. And the whole point of it is that you have somewhere in mind that you're going. I knew I needed to go to Machu Picchu. I knew I wanted to go to this hotel to check in. But along the way, I took the long way. I allowed myself enough time to get lost. And I swerved. I saw these things that were interesting to me. I saw these things that caught my eye. And I decided that it was more worth it to change my direction than to stay on the one that I was on. And it really comes down to 4 steps for how to swerve. Pretty simple. The first is you just make a plan. You set goals, you make a map, you create a list, whatever it is, you have this destination in mind that you're going to go to. And the second is just to start. Just go. Just start in that direction. Use that destination as a direction for your journey, not necessarily your endpoint. Just start, because momentum is really important. But once you get started, it's easy to keep going. The third and probably the most important thing is to look up. Right? The more that we're buried in our maps and our books and our phones, it's really hard to meet someone new. It's really hard to see that restaurant, to see outside of what's right in front of you. So it's really important to look up and to see what's important to you. And obviously the last one is just to swerve. And the idea is it's that easy. You just set off somewhere, see what's interesting to you, and you change your direction if you'd like. So we're all here in Tel Aviv. This is kind of like travel for me. Sorry, we're in Israel, but I live in Tel Aviv. Sorry, mentally, yes, right now we're in Jerusalem. So, just to give you some perspective, this is my Tel Aviv list. This is only a part of it, but red is restaurants, and blue is bars, and yellow is museums, and purple is live music, and brown, these purple ones are coffee shops, and the lighter colors are the stuff I've already done. So, it's funny because I could be in Tel Aviv right now crossing stuff off my list. I could be, spending a week going to 2 restaurants a day and going item by item and crossing everything out.
But he swerved.
But I'm in Jerusalem because I've chosen to swerve, just like you have. You have this life back in Tel Aviv, back at home, back wherever, but you found something that was interesting enough for you to change your path from your daily life and change directions. Just like today, we were supposed to go to the Knesset and we didn't, and the staff was amazing in swerving and changing directions and being so quick to find something else that was just as exciting, just as great. And I don't know about you, but I had a great day, even though I didn't go to the Knesset. So it doesn't just apply to travel. If you think about this list, about making a plan, about starting on that plan, looking up, and then swerving, it applies to everything in your life. So it applies to careers too. This is the way that I plan my career. So I went to school and I studied art and film. I wanted to be an animator at first, and when I got to college, I hated animation. I decided I'm going to swerve. I went to this specific school to be an animator because they have a great film program, and my first semester I hated it. So I decided to take a bunch of different classes, seeing the things that excited me, and I took art, and I took music, and I took songwriting, and I took improv, and I took acting, and I took advertising, and I loved advertising, so I decided I'm going to be a creative director. I set this goal, I'm going to work in advertising, and I'm going to be an art director. And an art director, in very short terms, comes up with ideas for commercials and then goes and makes them. So I'm going to show you 2 examples of the stuff that I've made. Maybe you've seen.
Mom! 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 Mommy! 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 Mama! Mama! Ma! Ma! Mom! 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 Hey, you're saying this phone's going to be like a precious jewel.
I've seen this.
The headphone jack is going to be on the bottom.
I heard the connector is voltage fell.
What?
What does that even mean?
Who knows? I'm saying.
All I'm saying is that they should have a priority line for people who've waited 5 times.
I heard you have to have an adapter to use the dock on the new one.
Yeah, but they make the coolest adapters.
Welcome back.
This the Galaxy S3 didn't work out.
No, I love the GS3. It's extremely awesome. I'm just saving a spot in line for someone.
That's not cool.
Yeah, man. This year, we're finally getting everything that we didn't get last year.
Yeah. True 4G.
Yeah.
What is that?
Hey, what'd you just do?
Oh, I just sent him a playlist.
Like touching phones.
Yeah, simple as that.
It's the Galaxy S3.
Yeah.
Hey,
Mom, Dad.
oh, thanks for holding our spot.
Hey,
Oh, hey.
how's it going? Saved you a spot. I moved on.
But you're not going to miss all this?
I got the Samsung GS3 now. Is that Samsung?
That's a new Samsung. It is. It's pretty cool.
This one's 4G.
Yeah, we've had that for a while.
This one's got a big screen.
This one has a bigger one. And we can share videos instantly. You can watch a video while you're sending an email.
Well, we're gonna get that for sure.
Maybe not this time, but the next time, right?
The next big thing is already here, the Samsung Galaxy S3.
So, okay. So, I worked in advertising for a long time. I made a bunch of other commercials. It was really fun. But I looked ahead, and I looked at my bosses, and I looked at what I really was interested in. And what happened is the ideas I was coming up with were much less exciting for me to go make commercials. It was much more exciting for me to come up with ideas for websites and for apps and for data visualizations and for web tools and widgets. And so I saw that as a moment to swerve, and I decided to quit. So in June, I quit advertising, and I decided to learn programming. So I'm here in Israel, and I've been teaching myself since June how to program so that I can swerve in my career. And again, when you think about how to swerve, I had this plan. I wanted to be an art director. I did it. I did it for 8 years. It was amazing. I have a great portfolio of stuff. But I looked up and I said, that wasn't for me. And I swerved. So why does it work? Well, it's got to work for the same reasons that traveling works, right? It's about this idea of changing your life. So what are the things that make travel life-changing? One, it's super low risk, right? Swerving works because I was already on my way to somewhere great. I know that I'm going to Machu Picchu. I know that being an art director or creative director is going to be great. So the idea of taking a detour, taking the long way, is pretty low risk because I can always come back to the path that I was on to begin with. And the second is that it expands my comfort zone. So I already have this experience, and now I'm looking for a new experience. I'm looking to code, and coding is such a different world than the world that I was in before. And I'm learning, and I'm experiencing new things, and I'm meeting new people, and I'm here in Israel right now because I want to learn and expand my comfort zone. So the same reasons why we travel are the same reasons that it's important to swerve. So, yeah, Peru changed my life. But I want to leave in 4 months from here, just like I'm sure you do, and say, Israel changed my life, right? That whatever this experience is that we're all going through, whether you're staying, whether you're not, you want this to be an impactful, meaningful, life-changing experience. So when you go back, you want to have this as your point of pride for leaving Israel. And really the only way to do that is to swerve. Like today. So my call to action is swerve today. So if you were going to go to sleep early tonight and you hear this conversation that you just can't miss, use that as an opportunity to stay up a little bit later. If you were going to go back to Tel Aviv this weekend and you think, hey, maybe there's something in Jerusalem that I saw today at the market that I should stay. If you think that I'm going to go back to home in 4 months, but something happened on this seminar that makes you rethink that, see it out and swerve. Because when you think about it, you're already halfway there, right? You've made a plan. You're in Israel. You're here at this leadership seminar. You've got that plan and you've started. So all you have to do now is look up and swerve.
Yeah.